The extraction had gone too smoothly, and Sergeant Thomas Reed hated smooth. Smooth meant you were missing something, an unseen mine, a delayed ambush. The quiet before the universe swung once more. He moved through the ruined Vrax outpost with 9 squad mates, their rifles still bled heat. Behind them, the weapons, cash burned, munitions popping in dull thuds. Transport arrives in 10. Commander Zelthos clicked through his translator. Ketheri's 4 eyes swept the wreckage. Finish, sweep, and withdraw. 73 years of war had turned everything into procedure. Thomas took rear guard because humans were good at noticing what others filtered out small movements. Wrong shadows. He saw one now, a twitch beneath a collapsed beam, pocket of darkness that breathed. Contact. Rear position, Thomas said. Corporal Vennick spun, plasma rifle rising. The Venari's visor painted a targeting lattice over the rubble. Enemy survivor. Solution acquired. Thomas stepped between the muzzle and the beam. Stand down. The squad froze. Translators hissed, trying to make sense of the command. Confusion crackled across the comlink. Reed, Zelthos snapped. Move aside. That is Vrax. Thomas knelt and shoved debris away until he could see. A Vrax cub lay pin-gray scales dulled by dust, eyes half-lidded, chest lifting in. Shallow, uneven gasps. 5 or 6 in human years. It's a child, Thomas said. It becomes a soldier, Finax replied. Protocol demands elimination of hostile survivors, Zelthos added. Future threat reduction. Ah! Thomas felt his jaw set. Protocol. Can go to hell. He checked fast. Broken ribs, dehydration, lacerations. Bad but survivable. The cub's claws flexed once, weak as a dying candle. I'm taking him with us, Thomas said. Silence answered. You will face court-martial, Zelthos said. You understand that. Thomas tore webbing from a shattered brace, made a sling, and lifted the small body into his arms. The cub whimpered, but didn't resist. Yeah, Thomas said. I understand. Back aboard the Union frigate Quantum Spear, the medical bay refused him. Treating captured enemies was one thing. Bringing one aboard voluntarily violated a dozen. Rules. Thomas carried the cub to his quarters and sealed the hatch for 7 days. While a tribunal prepared charges, Thomas became a caretaker. He cleaned wounds with antiseptic and steady hands, crushed nutrient paste into thin slurry, coaxing it between small fangs. He watched the field scanner, learned the rhythms of Vrax breathing, and sat through nights when fever seized the child and strange hissing words spilled out fear, pain, desperate calling for home. Thomas began calling him Kit in his head, because names made you responsible. Day by day, Kit improved. By the 3rd day, he could sit up. By the 5th, he could chew solid rations. By the 7th, the cuts had sealed into pink seams beneath gray scales. He still flinched at sharp sounds, but he no longer recoiled from Thomas's touch. On the morning of the tribunal, Thomas put on his dress uniform, combed Kit's head spines, checked fresh wrappings, and knelt so their eyes were level. Whatever happens, Thomas murmured, you're alive. He never reached the courtroom. At 0800 hours, alarms screamed. The Quantum Spear shuddered into combat posture. Red lights flooded the corridor. The intercom barked, all hands, battle stations. Thomas rushed to the viewport, Kit pressed against his leg, trembling. Outside, the stars were crowded with black shapes, warships, 100 of them, fanning into a killing arc. The Quantum Spear was a frigate, not a fortress. Minutes, Thomas thought. Zelthos's voice crackled shipwide, tight with disbelief. Vrax armada detected in closing. Thomas waited for the first volley. It never came. Instead, a single small craft peeled away from the fleet. A white plasma field flickered around its hull. The ancient symbol for parley. They're asking for Sergeant Reed. They're offering in exchange 10,000 Union prisoners for him. 10,000 was not a bargain. It was an admission of value. Kit made a sharp sound and stared at the lead ships. Marked in silver sigils Thomas had only seen in intelligence briefings. The crest of the High Chieftain's line. The chieftain's son, Zelthos, whispered over the channel. "Reed, what did you bring aboard?" The docking bay filled with armed guards in rigid silence. Thomas walked in with Kit beside him, steps unsteady. The shuttle's ramp lowered. To Vrax emerged towering, scarred, armored in ceremonial plate. One female? The female's eyes locked onto Kit, and a raw, broken sound tore from her throat. Kit ran. The reunion was fierce in its tenderness. The mother High Chieftain, Thomas realized by the way the male deferred gripped her son, inspected every healed scar, traced ribs, pressed her forehead to his. Then she turned to Thomas. Every weapon tracked her. Every breath stopped. She crossed the bay, and with a motion that made hardened soldiers forget how to stand, she knelt. She lowered her forehead to the deck at Thomas's boots. Her mate did. "The same I came for war," she said, translator rendering her voice into Union standard. "I came to retrieve my son dead or captive. Came to burn your ship from the sky, if vengeance demanded it." She lifted her head. Tears streaked down eyes that had ordered massacres. "But he lives," she said, touching Kit's cheek with a claw as gentle as air. "He is whole. His wounds are healed." Her gaze held Thomas like gravity. "You were our enemy, yet you gave him mercy. You gave him humanity." She rose, voice carrying across the bay. "For 73 years we have hunted and been hunted. We forgot what it means to be more than predators. But one human, facing judgment from his own people, remembered." She tapped her translator. "By my authority as High Chieftain of the Vrax Confederacy, I declare this war ended. All Union prisoners will be released. Negotiations for peace begin now." The bay stayed silent, stunned by the shape of a future no one had trained for. Kit stepped forward. Blinking hard and spoke in careful and perfect words he'd learned behind a locked hatch. "Thank you, Thomas. Friend, thank you for choosing." 6 months later, Thomas stood on Vrax Prime at the dedication of a peace garden. Crystal flowers grew from soil that had once been a battlefield. Children of a dozen species ran laughing between glowing stems. Kit chased them, healthy and bright, his laughter sharp against the wind. Behind Thomas, the tribunal had dissolved quietly. In the halls of the Galactic Union, protocols were being rewritten to include a concept that didn't fit any checklist. Humanity, Thomas understood, was not a species. It was a choice made in rubble, in fear, in the moment someone decided a child was not a target. In the end, it had only taken one person to keep a small light from going out. And that light had become a bridge strong enough to end a war.